Assalamualaikum and a very good day to our panels for today. I am Nurazlina binti Mohamed Diah along with my research partner Nur Arfah Syafiqah binti Malek, and today we'll be presenting about our research study which is the factors influencing public attitude towards reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Therefore, without further ado, we'll proceed with the presentations.
Plastic consumption has become a major concern in many countries including Malaysia, as it is able to contribute to environmental pollution including ocean pollution and others. Having features such as durable, light in weight and also cheaper cost in their production have made the public comfortably consume it in their daily life. Malaysia is one of developing country in Southeast Asia that having an inadequate system in dealing with a huge number of solid waste including plastic. Unfortunately, increase in the consumption of plastic among public days by days will enhance the number of solid waste, as it would require larger landfill site to support the number of solid waste in Malaysia. The Malaysian household waste from various economic status and living areas are ranged from 0.85 kg to 1.5 kg per person daily, and it is higher compared to other developing countries in Asia such as Indonesia and Philippines. The government of Malaysia have introduced policies and programs in order to create awareness and action among public, especially to reduce in the single plastic use consumption, such as No Plastic Bag Day campaign to create awareness among public, banning the use of plastic straw and others. To ensure that all these program and campaign work effectively in reducing plastic consumption, public acceptance toward these changes must be achieved, as public are responsible toward the plastic consumption issue that occur in Malaysia.
Okay, for the problem statement, I think we can all agree that the plastic waste issue not only concerning in Malaysia, but also can threaten the well-being of the society and environment globally. So, according to the National Geographic, for the next 10 years, the plastic waste could end up polluting our waterways and ocean. Therefore, it will not be shocking if human beings were indirectly affected as well, because this plastic waste can be broken down into smaller particles and could end up in our food system. Furthermore, 80% of the plastic waste that were originally from land can end up in the ocean, according to the study by Lipreton. As in terms of Malaysia, according to the report by WWF, in 2020, Malaysia will rank first among the Southeast Asia and China for using the most of plastic packaging, and 60% from the 8 million tons of plastic that polluted the oceans were coming from China, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines and Thailand. So the report also mentioned that Malaysia households contribute around 523 tons of plastic packaging waste annually, consisting of PET bottles, plastic bags and cups. So public in Malaysia is one of the major contributors toward the increase in plastic waste globally. Therefore, this research attempts to identify the public's attitude towards reducing the plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan.
For the research question, the first question is, what is the level of the public attitude toward reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan? Secondly, is there a relationship between public awareness, individual action and also public's preferences alternative towards public attitude in reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan? And the last, what is the most significant factor that influence public attitude in reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan? Next, we come up with the research objective, which is firstly, to determine the level of public attitude toward reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. Next, to identify whether there is a relationship between public awareness, individual action and public preferences alternative toward public attitude in reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. And lastly, to determine the most significant factor that influence the public attitude towards reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan.
Okay, so as we can see here is the figure of the research study conceptual framework where we already identify the independent variables, which consist of public awareness, individual actions and public preference alternative, while for the public attitudes towards reducing plastic consumption were identified as the dependent variable for the study. Okay, so hypothesis development for public awareness is null 1. There is no relationship between public awareness and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption. And HA1, there is a relationship between public awareness and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption. And for individual action, null 2, there is no relationship between individual actions and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption. And HA2, there is a relationship between individual action and public attitudes in reducing plastic consumption. While for public preference alternative, null 3, there is no relationship between public preference alternative and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption. And HA3, there is a relationship between public preference alternative and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption.
Next, for the methodology part, this research has used the quantitative approach with a research design which is a cross-sectional survey. This unit of analysis in this study is the individuals who are the public who stay in Seremban, Negeri, Sembilan. Next, for the sample size, we managed to get 2 to 0 data of the respondent they are staying in Seremban area. Next, the research use the non-probability convenience sampling technique whereby the questionnaire is distributed among public in Seremban who are conveniently available to give cooperation in answering the questionnaire, such as by distributing the questionnaire through media platform such as Facebook, WhatsApp and others.
Okay, so for the measurement, we're using the Likert scale, and for the data collection, this research study using the questionnaire that were constructed by Google Form and consisting of 5 parts, which is part A is for demographic profile, part B is the public attitude towards reducing plastic consumption, part C is public awareness, part D is individual action, and part E is the public preference alternative. And for the data analysis, we use the descriptive analysis to measure the level of the public attitude towards reducing plastic consumption, and Pearson correlation was used to measure the relationship between all independent variables and dependent variable, then multiple regression to determine the most significant factors that influence the dependent variables. Okay, so as we can see here is the table for demographic profile, which for gender, the majority of the respondent is a female with 62.7%. Next, for age, the majority of the respondent is between 18 to 28 years old with 70%. For race, the majority of the respondent is a Malay with 85.9%. And for the academic of qualification, the majority is from a degree with 55.5%. Next, for the living area, most of the respondents are from Bandar Seremban with 49.1%. And lastly, the number of households for most of the respondents is between 1 to 5 households for 70.9%.
For the main finding, in order to achieve the first objective, we did analyze on the descriptive statistic to find the mean of the dependent variable, which is the public attitude towards reducing plastic consumption. And then the result shows that the mean value is 3.3927, which is above than 2.5, which indicate there is a positive level of the public attitude toward reducing plastic consumption in Seremban, Negeri, Sembilan. Secondly, for the second objective, we did analyze the Pearson correlation, and also the significant two-taste shows that there is a positive relationship between public awareness and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption, with the R value is 0.225 and P value is 0.001, followed by the positive relationship between individual action and public attitude in reducing plastic consumption, which is R value 0.687 and P value 0.000. Finally, there is also a positive relationship between public preferences alternative and with public attitude in reducing plastic consumption, with the R value is 0.415 while P value is 0.000. Therefore, for the hypothesis, HA1 and HA2 is accepted while HO3 is rejected. Lastly, For the third objective, we analyze the multiple regression and the result shows that the adjusted R-square value is 0.467, which 46.7% of independent variables are influenced the dependent variable. Next, there is also the beta value on independent variable of individual action with 0.717 and p-value 0.000. Therefore, individual action is the most significant factor towards reducing plastic consumption among public in Seremban, Negeri Sembilan.
Okay, so for the first recommendation is by enhancing promotion to a zero plastic bag campaign. So this campaign should be getting cooperation from various organisations. And Malaysia government has initiated a zero plastic bag campaign nationwide in 2020 as according to its roadmap towards zero single-use plastic 2018 to 2030. However, this campaign is not effective as there are businesses who are simply do not care and still gives out plastic, as well as supermarkets who are profited by charging 20 cents per bag. So to ensure the successfulness of the campaign, the governments need to make it compulsory for the businesses to take part in the campaign and promote the importance of the campaign to them so they will know that their business activities contribute to negative effects on the environment. And for the second recommendation is by banning plastic bag. So Malaysia could start banning the usage of the plastic phase by phase. It is important for the Malaysian governments to prepare the businesses for it and introduce a better alternative than plastic. So there are other countries that have already implemented banning on plastic. There are, for example, in New York. So in 2020, New York already enforced a banning on the single-use plastic bags. Businesses that are reluctant to abide with the bag waste reduction law in New York can be fined up to $500. However, plastic are still allowed for takeout and uncooked meat for the purpose of the packaging. So Malaysia can follow the New York initiative to ban plastic bags, and that rule that applies to it needs to be strict so that businesses will not take the law lightly. Okay, for the third recommendation is by encouraging sustainable business activities. So the state governments of Negeri Sembilan can implement an incentive-based strategy for businesses that are able to run their business activities sustainably. And incentives such as tax reduction or allowance should be given to the businesses that actively engage in various of green initiatives that were held by the state government, as well as the appreciation for the business in showing their efforts in reducing the effects of their business activities have towards the environment.
The first limitation in this research is lack of sample. We are unable to achieve the maximum number of the respondent that should be, which is 384 respondent due to COVID-19 pandemic, whereby everyone need to comply with the SOP, which made us unable to collect data physically with public at malls, supermarket and others, as we can only distribute the questionnaire through online platform. The second limitation is the limited of time in collecting the data of the respondent, and if the duration of this study is conducted in longer period of time, it would contribute to more accurate and reliable data collection among respondent, because we might have sufficient time to look for the respondent in both medium, which are through physical and online platform. The last limitation is limited research study in Malaysia that related to public attitude toward plastic consumption, which cause some difficulties in looking for further information that can be referred related to this research compared to the research from the other countries.
Okay, so to conclude, this research study is able to confirm that there are positive relationship between the public awareness, individual actions and public preference alternative towards public attitudes in reducing plastic consumption in Seremban Negeri Sembilan. So all three factors mentioned prove that it has significantly influenced the public of Seremban in reducing the plastic consumption. So furthermore, this research study is also able to provide related parties with recommendations that they can refer to as a reference for them. Thank you to the panels, and therefore that's the end for our presentation.